Welcome back, and congratulations in sticking through and actually discovering and diving deeper more into yourself and the LifePrint operating system, personal performance software. Today, what we're going to be doing is really diving deep into the brain, how you receive information, how you conceive information, how you perceive information, and how you engage with that in your everyday life. So we're not all wired the same way. Turns out there's 9 ways a brain can be wired. And so we're going to run you through exactly what this means for you and why it plays such an important role in really finding our purpose, our trajectory, what it is that we're really, really, really good at, and really what is governing, what is the board of directors in terms of your brain function and its interpretation. So without further ado, let's jump in. So we're going to go into the LifePrint software. And we're going to come in, and yesterday what we did was we covered the calendar, and we covered the life cycles, year cycles, monthly cycles, and daily cycles. What we're going to have a look at now is really, now we know that where we're at, what we want to do is we want to come down and actually have a look at how we wired, right? As mentioned before, there's only 9 ways a brain can literally be wired. So what you're going to do is the neurological archetype will tell you exactly what it is that you're looking at. What's the definition of a neurological archetype? Well, for us, this is your internal processing, your decision-making, how you go through and make decisions and interpret information. And then how do you make a decision on that information and express that physically, emotionally, articulate that verbally, emotionally into the environment, okay? And so there's 9 ways that a brain can be wired, and that will determine what neurological archetype in terms of the category that it falls into. The next is you'll notice there, out of that neurological archetype, there is an expression, and then there is a decision-making. So the decision-making is the internal processing in terms of conceiving information, interpreting that conception of information, as well as perceiving information from the environment, something that is not internal, that's come up as insight, but rather something that is a causative factor of being and engaging in our environment, okay? And so the decision-making is internal, and the expression is based on that conception or that projection in terms of what we're putting out there and how that is received and how we get the feedback in terms of what it comes back, right? And so the expression is really the physical and the verbal expression in terms of what we are doing based on our decision-making and internal processes, okay? Now, there's 2 things here, excuse me. There's 2 things here. Firstly, we make the decision, right? We have insights, we have creativity, we have a problem, we have a challenge, we have information, or we are basically having insight or intuitive in terms of what we must do or what we want to create and stuff like that, okay? So we've got a decision making. Now we can make decisions based on kind of left brain functioning, very rational, very direct, very logical, very systematic, very efficient, from that side of things, okay? That is a goal-orientated. I have a goal, and I'm orientating, I'm being rational, I'm looking at it logically, I'm planning, I'm strategy, I'm having a look at it's very efficient, and kind of I want to get there from a point A to point B. Then we've got another side, which is the more conceptual side. So you're not goal-orientated. Instead of goal-orientated, you're conceptual. Okay, and conceptual basically means that you're more creative. You look at a lateral perspective, not a logical one, means you kind of out of the box thinking. You look at a more of a creative way of problem solving. And so you're more intuitive in terms of how you will go through your decision making. You may be more gathering in terms of more information before you make anything, and then creatively kind of coming up with a solution or an intuitive insight, okay? So that's 2 ways a brain can be wired. You've got goal-orientated internally and conceptual internally. Now you can also get a combination of the 2, meaning you can be both goal-orientated and conceptual. Now this doesn't mean to say, if I'm goal-orientated, Justin, Does that mean that I'm not conceptual? No, 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 no. You have both goal-orientated and conceptual sides of yourself. However, you will have a dominant other, like a dominant right hand. Just because I have a dominant right hand doesn't mean I don't use my left hand. It just means that I prefer to throw the ball with my right hand. It's a very similar perspective here. You'll prefer to be goal-orientated. That'll be a natural baseline for you to go. Doesn't mean that you can't train your creative or your conceptual side. Okay, so very different in terms of how you plug in. Okay, so you can get goal oriented. Just because I'm conceptual doesn't mean I'm not necessarily goal oriented either, but my dominance will kind of lean towards that side. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Now, how dominant or how conceptual plays a part, because out of a total of 7.5, that's the max you can get, right? That's how within that baseline, where do you fall, right? And so in terms of goal-orientated decision-making power, out of 7.5 being a total, Justin over here is goal-oriented in terms of 6.5. So I've got big goals. I've got some big plans. I'm very ambitious. You can look at that in terms of not really ambition, but just kind of in terms of like how goal-oriented, like how much, right? Out of 7.5. The closer that this gets to 4 just means that it's on the other side of the spectrum. So it starts 4.5, right? So 4.5. If it was 4.4, it means that I'm harmonized. My brain is balanced in terms of being both conceptual and goal-oriented. It means I can do both, and both are dominant, right? Both are vying for kind of, I want to do this, I want to do that, okay? So you can also have a decision-making brain that's kind of wide internally that can have both. And so you may be there too, okay? Which means you can do both, but sometimes it's a struggle whether you should be more goal-oriented or you should focus on more problem solving. Creativity, okay? Now, at the same respect, we've got an expression, an emotional expression. It's either physically emotional, everything's done emotionally because we're emotional beings, we're human, okay? And emotion is the energy that we have in motion, right? Remember, emotion is really defined by the meaning, and the meaning gives drive to the emotion. So all emotions come from meaning. If meaning is strong enough that it matters, you move, right? That's why you don't need to negotiate or motivate yourself, because if you have enough meaning in your life, you immediately move towards those things. You don't need to be convinced. You don't need to be persuaded. You already make the decision and you move, okay? If it matters enough. It only matters enough if it means enough. And if it means enough, you'll move, okay? And so that movement is really our expression. And that can either be dominant in terms of how forceful is it, how forceful will it be in attaining either the conceptual idea or getting that across, or the goal in terms of attainment or achievement, okay? And then the other side is a more passive approach. Do we kind of step gently? Do we express ourselves creatively? Are we more colorful in our expression, okay? And so the dominant one will typically be, don't worry about all the story stuff. Just get me to the bottom line. What's the result? What's the bottom line of the story? You're taking me all over the place, okay? Whereas, and it'll just want, like, what's the point? It'll want to get to the end, right? So that's the dominance, okay? It'll want to, like, what's the point? Move on. Like, let's get there. Let's get there, okay? Keep going, right? Whereas the conceptual one won't be so worried about getting to the destination, more of how we get to the destination. And so they'll give the details, the colorful speech. They'll be more creative in terms of how they get there. It'll matter and mean more to them. And once again, you can get a combination of both, where somebody is balanced, but both are fighting for their dominance, whether it's kind of dominant behavior or whether it's dominantly creative and passive, right? So let's use this in terms of not to get confused. Let's say, which is the priority? Do I need to be more dominant and push here? Or do I need to take a passive approach, step back, reconsider things, or do I need to push through, right? So it's that passive or the dominant, or the combination of both. Okay. And out of those combinations, you get 9 possible links that you can make in terms of how a neurological archetype is really wired. Okay. Now, what does this mean? This basically just means that the neurological archetype is almost like your board of directors. Okay. It's like the governing council of the entire operating system. So this means, according to where it's at, remember the life cycle and its development, right? What neurological archetype it is and how it's responding to its environment. And based on that response system, this governing council is going to use its talents, abilities, and performance patterns, otherwise known as your personality, your identity, or what we like to call in LifePrint, your perception model, right? Your perception model map. And based on that perception model map of this neurological archetype, it's going to use these performance patterns to interact, make decisions with its environment and its lessons and its learning and how it engages and interacts with everybody else. So these performance patterns, which we're going to get to in the next few videos, these performance patterns really are governed through the lens of the neurological archetype. And they'll be trying to reach this operating manual in terms of what we're here to do and achieve, or what we're here to do and build, or what we're here to do and research. But you only really get to becoming through doing, okay? Right? So it's not enough just to be. Being is fine, right? But you also have to do in your being. Being is also about doing, because you only get to becoming if there's anything that you want to attain or achieve, or something you want to really get to in your life. You only get there through doing. Okay, and we'll go through a few perception model management maps that I can help you with later on. But right now, what we're looking at is really like, I only become from doing. You don't become a rock star without doing the things to become that rock star. For instance, if you're a singer, you only become a great singer if you do the singing, right? You don't just magically become, right? And so part of that doing is making mistakes as you move, as you know, that eventually you've done it so many times, your repetition and frequency has been so many times that you then become into mastery. And mastery is really about unconscious competence, okay? It's when something is literally, you're not even thinking about it and you're doing it. When there's a challenge, you know how to it's just so natural. It doesn't take up any part of the actual conscious mind of focus and concentration. Kind of like driving a car. You know, when you first get into a car, it's a little sticky, like gear stick, especially if you're driving manual, like, what does this do? It's you focusing on many things. And eventually you're driving down the road thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner. You don't even know what happened the last 5 kilometers because you've just been in flow, and it's unconscious competence. Okay. And so that only happens through doing. It's repetition and frequency. Now, mastery is about doing and making mistakes. In fact, mastery is almost like perfecting failure. You failed so many times, you've actually mastered the thing because you just stopped failing because you came to a solution and you got it right eventually, because you repeated it and you were frequent with it, that the mistakes eventually went away because you made the link between what went wrong and what went right. And so part of mastery is giving yourself to repeat frequently the mistakes. And eventually you stop making the mistakes because you learn them so well that they're unconscious competence, that you look like a master, but a master is just somebody that's already perfected all the mistakes that they could have made in terms of what's possible within that domain of skill set. Okay, so you've got to give yourself permission, but you only become what you want to be through doing, right? And so make being doing, right? And we'll go through a perception model map of that. I hope that has been informative for you today. Thank you very much for being with us. Let us know if there's anything else you would like to see in upcoming videos, if you have any questions, and most importantly, please, if you're enjoying the software, if this really relates to you, let us know how it's helping you, or if you could please pass it on to your family, friends, or the people you love and care about. We hope you have a beautiful day and wish you all the best until we connect next time. Thank you from me, Justin.